how to make a natural tied posy, just like this one here. Now this would be suitable for a special occasion, or in fact for a bride or a bridesmaid to hold. This particular one is more suitable for a bride because it's quite large. You're going to need ribbon, 90 gauge florist wire, a sticky florist tape. To secure your design, I'm going to use a paper covered wire, but alternatively you could use string. Now the material selection, it's up to you. Obviously you'd need to bear in mind the season, and in fact if it's for a bride or a bridesmaid you'd need to consider the type of dresses they're wearing and the colours that they're wearing. I've chosen to go with pinks and purples today. I think that they look good together, and I've chosen some wonderful pink roses. Now all of my materials have been conditioned in advance, and I've given them a 24-hour drink so that they're nice and firm and at really an optimum stage for arranging with. So what you need to do is make sure that all of your foliage and thorns have been removed from your flowers in advance. So there are the roses. I've also chosen some really wonderful spray roses. They're in a pink and cream. I think they'll complement my large roses there. Also got a lovely material here called Bavaria. That's going to give a great texture, and also that's a beautiful colour. These are Veronica. I've chosen, just to give some depth of colour, I've chosen some agapanthus. And for another texture, I've got some pink linoleum statice. You're going to need to also select a foliage. I've chosen this lovely variegated pittosporum. You could use an ivy, or really anything that's going to complement your flowers. I wanted to pick a material to frame my bouquet, and I've chosen some wonderful hydrangea. So that's my material selection there. What I've tried to do is I've tried to pick contrasting textures and some colours that look very good together, and these visually would photograph very well if you were making this bouquet for a bride or a bridesmaid to carry. Okay, I'm going to start with the hydrangea because the hydrangea is going to need some special preparation. What you're going to need to do is take your hydrangea and actually break it down into smaller florets. And I anticipate you're probably going to need between 8 and 12 florets. So you're going to need to break each one off. And when doing that, also just have a look and see if there are any bits that are discoloured or bruised. Now before you start your bouquet, you're going to need to prepare your hydrangea. So what you're going to need to do is you're going to mount it onto a 90 gauge wire. I'm going to use two 90 gauge wires together, and actually I'm going to single leg mount the hydrangea. So I'm going to place the wire underneath the hydrangea, then bring both ends together, and then take the longest end of wire and wrap it around the stem of the hydrangea like so. And that's called a single leg mount. Now there's a little bit of discoloration there, so I'm just going to pinch that out. Especially if it's for a bride or a bridesmaid to carry, you only really want to use perfect materials. Okay, once you've wired them, you're going to need to tape them. So I'm using the florist tape. I'm going to take the florist tape or stem tex and wrap it around the wire and down the stem. The reason I'm doing this is because what will happen is this will give me added length when I make the bouquet, because the hydrangea comes on a very big head and it wouldn't be suitable for a bouquet. So I'm actually taking it down into much more manageable pieces, and I need to extend the stem like so. Also it gives you a little bit of flexibility as well in the stem, and I'm going to use this as a collar like so around this one, around the edge of the bouquet, and this will help me to make the collar just perfect, and that will also improve the shape of the bouquet. One other thing you're going to need to do, you're going to need to make your bow in advance. So I'm going to use a fabric ribbon, and this ribbon itself is actually wired, and that will improve the shape of the bow. I'm going to make a figure of 8 bow, and I'm going to make a loop, then turn and make another loop, turn. And I actually like to make 3 loops on each side of the bow. Like so. And just to secure that, with a silver wire. Have a figure of 8 bow. Now to secure that to the bouquet, you're going to need a longer length of ribbon, and you need to tie that over the silver wire there. Once and then again. And really, once all your materials are conditioned and they're all placed onto your desk, you're ready to start. The first thing you need to do is find a really attractive piece of foliage or something that you want to put in the centre of your bouquet. And this really is called your focal area. So I've got a nice piece of pittosporum here, and in actual fact it's a bit too bushy. So I'm going to remove some of the foliage and just start with a much smaller piece. Now I'd like to make a bouquet that would be suitable for a bridesmaid to carry. So I want to concentrate on not making it too big, and also concentrate on having a focal area and then some areas of interest around the focal area. Okay, so I'm looking for an attractive rose to start with. Looks like a good one. And the idea of a natural posy is that it looks natural, it's assembled in the hand, and it should have a very good shape and be all round and have a nice circular shape. So I've started with this rose, and then from there I'm going to add my materials in. So I'll add in some Bavaria. Now when you're making a posy, you need to make sure that every stem crosses. So don't place them in straight, place them in at an angle, and always place your materials in at the same angle. And you work around the focal area, building up your design. So I've started with my first placement there, second. And the great thing is, because I've cared for everything in advance, because I've conditioned all the materials in advance, everything's on the desk, it's very easy to assemble your design. You just pick your placements up and you place them directly in. In a spray rose, and you just build around your focal flower, and each time remembering to place your materials in at an angle. The reason for this is that what will eventually happen is you'll have a spiral technique down here, and that will create a good shape at the top. And in fact then you would be able to stand the bouquet up. So if it were for a gift, the bouquet would actually stand. But I don't think that's so important for brides or bridesmaids, because obviously the bouquet is intended to carry. What I'm aiming to do is to actually place my key flowers, so my roses and my agapanthus, because that's my darkest colour. I'm trying to place them evenly around my focal flower. And that will give harmony to the bouquet, and also it will guarantee balance. So I've got one focal flower there, and then I'm going to put 3 roses around as well. At any time if you've made a mistake, it's a very easy thing to rectify. So if I look at this, I'm not happy with the placement there of the rose, so you can just relax your hand, take the rose out, and then just by relaxing your hand again, slot it back into the bouquet. So you can't really make a mistake. You can always place the materials back down and start again. because I'm starting to work on the shape now. I'm looking now to see if the shape's good around the outside. I'm going to start placing my Veronica in. I want to put my Veronica in towards the outside of the bouquet. You should ensure that everything below your hand, all the stems below your hand, are nice and clean and not have foliage on them, so make sure that you take all of the lower foliage off. The reason for that is because once you've made your bouquet, you're going to store it in a vase of clean water until it's ready to be delivered, and you want to make sure that you're not encouraging bacterial growth into the water. Okay, when you get to this stage, you need to think then about adding your hydrangea to complete the design. But I just want to look, I've got a little problem there with the balance on one side, so I just want to add in a piece more pittosporum, and you need a small piece. There we go. I'm just going to trim this down a bit because this is quite unmanageable, so I'm just going to trim it down to a more manageable length. Okay, now I want to add the hydrangea. With the hydrangea, I want to place it around the outside of the bouquet to reinforce the shape, and also to give another texture to the design and really to frame the bouquet. I'm just adding them in all the way around. Lower those roses a little there. And just check my final design now to make sure that everything is in the correct place. I'm ready to tie this design up, and as you can see now I've completed it. Can you see the way we've got a lovely spiral there? A good shape at the top, and in fact all of the stems have spiraled out at the bottom, and that's what gives you that good shape there. And in fact you can see that you're holding everything just between really your thumb and finger. If your hand starts to ache while you're making the design, you can always just place it on the desk and relax your hand. Okay, now I'm ready to tie it off, and I'm going to use my paper covered wire, which I'm going to place under my thumb, and then wrap it around the bouquet several times. Put it nice and tight, it won't damage the stems. It's covered in paper and it's nice and gentle on the stems, but it does give you a nice secure finish. If you don't have this, then it's okay, you can use string, and the string works in just the same way. Okay, once you've actually completed the design, you need then to trim the stems to a hand span. The reason you do this is firstly to make it more comfortable for the bride or the bridesmaid to carry. So I'm going to squeeze the stems in, measure about a hand span, and then trim all of the stems to the same length. Once you get to this stage, you then need to attach your bow. To do this, I'm going to place my bow, I'm going to secure it right over just where I've tied the wire to bind the bouquet together. So I'm going over the wire and then bringing the ties around to the front where the bow is, and then underneath firmly tying that into place. I'm going to tie it twice so that it doesn't slip undone. And then trim all of the tails down to a reasonable length. Now if this is for a bride to carry, what you need to do is to just snip the wires so that they're shorter than the stems. There you have it, a beautiful bouquet, a good shape, prominent focal area, good colours and textures, and I'm sure any bride would be happy to carry that.